The king has arrived in Kenya on his first state visit to a Commonwealth nation since he became sovereign. He touched down on the official RAF Voyager aircraft in Nairobi at 7 p.m. UK time, accompanied by his wife, Queen Camilla. There was no ceremonial welcome, as that will formally take place in the capital tomorrow. Instead, the couple left the plane without fuss or fanfare, in what is classed as an administrative arrival. Royal aides said the aircraft flew from the UK using 40% sustainable air fuel at the king's request. Their 4-day trip on behalf of the UK government, lasting from October 31st to November 3rd, is designed to be forward-looking and highlight the warm working relationship it enjoys with Kenya. It also marks the 60th anniversary of the country gaining its independence from Britain in 1963, while Queen Elizabeth was on the throne. But the monarch does intend to address the painful legacy of colonialism head-on. His Majesty will take time during the visit to deepen his understanding of the wrongs suffered in this period by the people of Kenya, his Deputy Private Secretary Chris Fitzgerald has said. Mr. Fitzgerald said the king would also acknowledge the more painful aspects of the United Kingdom and Kenya's shared history, including the 1952 emergency and the brutal suppression of the Mau Mau Rebellion. The British presence in Kenya dates back to 1895, when white settlers were given huge tracts of rich farmland. It became a full colony in 1920. Enraged at the loss of their ancestral lands and angry at the lack of indigenous political rights, the Mau Mau began an aggressive uprising against the British in 1952. It lasted until 1960 and is now regarded in Kenya as one of the most significant steps in the country freeing itself from British rule. Officially, 11,000 Kenyans were killed during this period, but the Kenya Human Rights Commission estimates that in all, more than 90,000 Mau Mau people were executed, tortured, or maimed during the crackdown, with a further 160,000 detained in camps where they were subjected to severe torture, sexual assault, malnutrition, and beatings. In 2013, the British government made an historic statement of sincere regret over the abuses committed during the emergency and paid out £19.9 million in compensation to around 5,200 Kenyan claimants. However, Britain has always maintained that modern-day governments are not legally liable for the actions of the colonial administration in Kenya. Hence why there has been no full apology. It is believed that the king will become the first member of the royal family to acknowledge Britain's mea culpa publicly, but he will also stop short of saying sorry based on the government's stance. He is, however, set to address the issue with diplomacy and humility when he gives a return toast at a dazzling state banquet in Nairobi thrown in his honor by President Ruto and the First Lady tomorrow. President Ruto, who has invited the British monarch to visit, is said to be personally keen that the royal visit look to the future and the two countries' strong relationship in areas as diverse as trade, culture, and military, rather than the sometimes uncomfortable past. However, the king, who through earlier trips to France and Germany, as well as handling of the current crisis in the Middle East, has proved an increasingly adept statesman, is determined not to sidestep the issue. And it is believed that the state banquet, which is set to include his first major public address of the trip, will be the perfect occasion to do this.
Princess Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh had in the meanwhile arrived at their first stopping place in Kenya, where a few days were due to be spent before sailing to Australia. The grievous news of her father's death reached the young queen, now aged 25, at this lodge in the highlands of East Africa.
Hakuna kichote analeta, yeye ni kutembea, anakuja tu kutembea. Ana mali, ana kila kitu. So hakuna kichote anakuja kuletea Kenya, na hakuna benefit anakuja kuletea mimi mwananchi wa kawaida. Ni kutuumiza kiuchumi tu. Kwa sababu biashara mingi zitafungwa, barabara zitafungwa. Hiyo siku itakuwa ni siku ngumu sana kwa sisi wenye tunafanya kazi ya usafiri.
We benefit by him coming, help us, make roads, build schools, help our children afford school fees and other things. There are no jobs, graduates are struggling, everybody is struggling. Kenya is struggling. We need help.
I don't think the king's visit will have any big or positive impact on the economy of Kenya. I think it will just cause a lot of congestion and confusion in the city, a lot of disruption of businesses, and we've not had a very good relationship with them in the past.
request that we remain standing as we now call His Grace, the Most Reverend Jackson Olesapit, to lead us in a short prayer to bless the meal before us this evening. Welcome, Your Grace. Speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Cabinet and Principal Secretaries present.
The choice of Kenya as Your Majesty's first
program in 2020. In 6 decades of strong, dynamic, and fruitful.
To be able to return to this extraordinary country.
Forest complex, a water
facing it here and now.
For both our countries.
About 400 members of the Kenya United Kingdom.
Comfortable truths that reside in the darker region
of the myriad links between our two countries.
First step under your leadership. We are therefore confident.
President Dr. William Ruto.
The third day of defense and security. I trust that this visit, that you are a veteran visionary. Former British presence in Kenya was pleased.
I know, Mr. President, that you and I share.
Leave us prisoners of the past. Neither can we to receive and host you in Kenya. That through our world-renowned hospitality
with Kenyan conservationists.
And if colonialism was brutal and atrocious,
I'm Jambo. Niaje. Fuhara yangu kuwa nanyi jioni ya leo.
Mabibi na mabwana, Jambo, Niaje, ni furaha yangu kuwa nanyi jioni ya leo. I cannot tell you what a great pleasure it is for my wife and I to be back in Kenya once again. I am enormously grateful to you, Mr. President, Madam First Lady, for your most generous invitation to make this state visit. The tremendous hospitality you have shown us and the wonderfully warm welcome that you and the people of Kenya have extended to us have touched me deeply. If I may say so, it is particularly special to be able to return to this extraordinary country in the 60th year of your independence. Today, Mr. President, you and I stood by the mighty Mugumo tree, which marks the spot where almost 60 years ago the Kenyan flag was first raised. It seemed to me that the tree is thriving, strong and deeply rooted, just as this great republic and her people continue to thrive. It means a great deal to my wife. We both take considerable pride in renewing the ties between the United Kingdom and Kenya, a country that has long held such special meaning for my family. Najisikia kama niko nyumbani. Now, it is well known, I think, that my dear mother, the late Queen, had a particular affection for Kenya and the Kenyan people. She arrived here in 1952 a princess, but left as Queen. It is extremely moving to read her diary from that visit, in which she wrote that she did not want to miss a moment of Kenya's extraordinary landscapes. I really cannot thank you enough for the support Kenya gave her through that difficult time. 10 years later, my father, the late Duke of Edinburgh, attended the celebrations of
Ladies and gentlemen, I did inform His Majesty earlier that in Kenya there is a concept called Kingpin, and there is a contest for kingpins around Kenya. Different regions have different kingpins. And there is a vicious contest for this kingpin position, which literally amounts to not so much. But this week, all contests about kingpins have been suspended because the king himself is in town. Let us drink to the long life and good health of His Majesty King Charles III and Her Majesty Queen Camilla, and to the enduring bonds of friendship and partnership for the shared prosperity of the people of our two great nations.